For decades, it was a symbol of security, a place where fortunes were safeguarded, secrets were locked away, and trust was never questioned. But what if the very thing designed to protect became the cause of unimaginable terror? This is no urban legend. This is the story of the vault that no one dares to open, the one that has left behind a trail of unanswered questions and unshakable fear. Tonight, we unravel the events that turned a place of sanctuary into a nightmare that refuses to fade. It begins with a vault door, a fortress of steel and silence. Behind it, whispers of the past seem to linger, growing louder with every passing year. The sounds, the shadows, the inexplicable. What could drive men to madness in the confines of its walls? And why does no one stay in the same room as it after dark? Stay with us as we uncover the story of the bank vault that locked more than just treasures away. This isn't just a tale of locked doors and lost keys. What you're about to hear is a story that stretches beyond logic and reason. A story so steeped in dread that even the bravest refuse to speak of it aloud. The bank vault, an architectural marvel of its time, was meant to protect the wealth of a thriving city. But over the years, it became something else entirely. A silent guardian of something no one could explain. Something that brought fear into the hearts of all who came near. To understand the events that unfolded within these walls, we must first go back to the beginning. Built in the early 1900s, this vault was hailed as impenetrable, a fortress of steel and concrete. It wasn't just a place to store money. It was a symbol of power, a statement of security, and for some, a lifeline. But as its reputation grew, so did the whispers. Workers reported strange happenings during its construction, tools that vanished without a trace, accidents that defied explanation, and an unshakable feeling of being watched. The vault wasn't like any other. It wasn't just a room, it was a monolith, 12-inch thick steel walls, a door so heavy it required a specialized mechanism to open. But the real questions arose after it was sealed for the first time. The echo of the locking mechanism, they said, sounded like something waking up. And though no one spoke of it, many believed that the vault wasn't just keeping things out. It was keeping something in. For decades, this imposing structure stood at the heart of the bank, untouched and undisturbed except for routine inspections. Customers marveled at its grandeur, its sheer invincibility. But the staff knew better. The ones who worked late, the ones who heard the whispers echoing down the halls, they would tell a different story. A story of shadows moving where there shouldn't be any. Of a coldness that crept in, even in the height of summer. Of faint knocks, like something or someone was trying to get out. This is no simple ghost story. This is the account of a vault that harbored more than just wealth. A vault that seemed to guard its secrets with a vengeance. A vault that left behind a trail of fear, madness, and unanswered questions. Tonight, we will take you deeper into its history, its horrors, and the lives it changed forever. In the early 1900s, at the height of the city's booming economy, a decision was made to build a bank that would become the cornerstone of its prosperity. At the heart of this ambitious project was the vault, a steel leviathan designed to safeguard the riches of the elite. Its specifications were unlike anything ever attempted. 12-inch thick walls, a locking mechanism that required not one but 3 keys, and a door so heavy that it took a team of engineers weeks to install it. It was the epitome of security, or so they thought. Construction began in 1908, but almost immediately, the project was plagued by misfortune. Workers spoke of tools that vanished without explanation, only to reappear days later in places no one could access. Entire sections of scaffolding collapsed without warning, injuring dozens. But the most chilling incidents were the disappearances. Over the course of 2 years, 4 workers simply vanished. No one saw them leave. No bodies were ever found. They were there one moment, gone the next. The most infamous incident, however, came just months before the vault was completed. Late one night, a foreman overseeing the project stayed behind to inspect the locking mechanism. When his team returned the next morning, they found the foreman crushed beneath a section of the vault door. The police ruled it an accident, but whispers among the workers suggested otherwise. Some claimed they heard his screams echoing through the construction site long after he was supposed to have died. Despite these setbacks, the vault was completed in 1910. It stood as a triumph of engineering, a fortress designed to protect, to preserve, to endure. But for those who built it, it was something else entirely. A place of suffering, of loss, and of fear that lingered long after the final stone was laid. At the center of the bank's creation was Henry Caldwell, a man as enigmatic as he was ambitious. Caldwell was a financier who had made his fortune during the industrial boom. Reclusive by nature, he rarely appeared in public, preferring to conduct his business behind closed doors. But those who knew him spoke of an obsessive streak, a man consumed by the idea of control, and nowhere was this obsession more evident than in the vault. According to those closest to him, Caldwell believed that the vault was more than a storage space. He once remarked, "Nothing leaves this vault, not even souls." At the time, it was dismissed as a poetic expression of the vault's security. But as time went on, his words would take on a far darker meaning. When the vault became operational in 1911, it was hailed as a triumph. Customers flocked to the bank, eager to store their most valuable possessions in its confines. But almost immediately, whispers began to circulate. Bank employees spoke of a heaviness in the air around the vault, an oppressive feeling that grew stronger the closer one got to the steel door. Some claimed they heard faint tapping sounds coming from inside, though the vault was empty. By 1920, rumors of the vault's strange properties had spread beyond the bank. Yet, despite the unease it inspired, Henry Caldwell remained steadfast in his belief that the vault was the bank's greatest asset. But for those who worked there, it was a different story entirely. As the years went on, more and more employees requested transfers to other branches. They said it wasn't worth the unease, the sleepless nights, or the dreams of the vault that wouldn't let them go. The turning point came in 1953, during an attempted robbery that would forever change the vault's legacy. Late one evening, 4 armed men broke into the bank. Their target was clear: the vault. Equipped with blowtorches and dynamite, they believed they could breach its defenses. What they didn't know was that the vault had a defense of its own. According to security footage, now lost to time, the robbers managed to force the vault door open just enough to slip inside. Once they entered, the alarms sounded, and the bank's security team sprang into action. They sealed the door shut, trapping the men inside. But what should have been a straightforward capture turned into something far more disturbing. Security guards reported hearing frantic screams and pounding from inside the vault. One guard swore he heard the men calling out for help, their voices filled with terror. And then, suddenly, silence. When the police arrived and the vault was reopened, what they found defied explanation. The robbers were gone. Not a trace of them remained. No bodies, no tools, nothing. The only evidence of their presence was a series of bloody handprints smeared across the walls of the vault. The incident sent shockwaves through the community. Some called it divine retribution. Others believed the vault had claimed its first victims. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. The vault was no longer just a place to store valuables. It had become something else entirely. Something no one could explain. For decades, the employees who worked closest to the vault spoke of things they couldn't explain. Strange noises in the dead of night, metallic scraping, soft whispers, and faint, rhythmic tapping. Some described the sensation of a cold draft, even when the vault door was sealed shut and the air around it was stagnant. Others claimed that their belongings, keys, pens, even wallets, would move when left unattended, sometimes reappearing inside the vault itself, though no one had opened the door. One security guard, tasked with nightly rounds, described hearing faint laughter coming from behind the vault door. When he leaned in closer, the laughter abruptly stopped, replaced by a single sharp knock from the other side. The guard refused to complete his shift that night and never returned to work. Perhaps the most chilling account comes from a janitor who worked late one night in 1977. By his own admission, he wasn't a man prone to fear. But something about the vault unsettled him. He recalled seeing shadowy figures moving just beyond the edge of the light cast by his mop bucket. At first, he thought it was his imagination, shadows cast by the lights above. But when one of the figures seemed to step forward, blocking the light completely, he knew something was wrong. Terrified, the janitor dropped his tools and ran. He later described the figure as having no discernible features, just a silhouette, blacker than the surrounding darkness. He quit the following morning, refusing to ever set foot in the bank again. These stories, though chilling, were dismissed by the bank's management as the result of overactive imaginations or stress. But for those who experienced them, the fear was real. By the 1980s, the vault's reputation had grown beyond the bank. Stories of strange happenings attracted the attention of a team of paranormal investigators who sought to uncover the truth. What they found only deepened the mystery. Their equipment picked up significant electromagnetic anomalies near the vault, with readings spiking and dropping without explanation. Audio recordings captured faint, distorted voices, whispers, and occasional bursts of laughter that seemed to echo from deep within the vault. But the most unsettling discovery was visual. When reviewing their footage, the investigators noticed fleeting images of faces in the reflections of the steel door, faces that weren't present during filming. Halfway through the investigation, one team member abruptly left, pale and visibly shaken. When asked what happened, he simply said, "Something inside doesn't want us here." He refused to elaborate and never returned to the site. The findings were never made public, and the tapes were reportedly locked away, though fragments have surfaced online, further fueling speculation about what lies within the vault. Perhaps the most disturbing incident occurred in 1990, during a routine inspection of the vault. The bank's manager, a meticulous and rational man, entered the vault alone to verify its contents. When the door closed behind him, everything seemed normal. But within minutes, his demeanor changed. He later reported hearing his name whispered from the far corner of the vault, though no one else was present. What followed was 2 hours of pure terror. Security footage, though grainy and incomplete, shows the manager pacing back and forth, clutching his head as if trying to block out a noise no one else could hear. At one point, he dropped to his knees and appeared to scream, though no sound was recorded. When the vault was finally reopened, He was found curled up in a corner, muttering incoherently. He never returned to work, and his family later reported that he refused to speak of the incident for the rest of his life. By 2010, the bank had closed its doors for good, and the vault was left untouched. But the stories didn't end there. Urban explorers, drawn by tales of the vault's dark history, began to investigate the site on their own. Many reported eerily similar experiences: cameras malfunctioning, batteries draining within minutes, and sudden chills that made the air feel almost unbreathable. To this day, the vault remains sealed, its secrets locked away. But for those who have come close, the question lingers: what is the vault protecting? Or perhaps more chillingly, what is it hiding? But the most disturbing part? The vault's door wasn't supposed to close by itself. Stay tuned, because what happened next will make your blood run cold. To truly understand the vault's horrors, we must go back even further, before the bank, before the vault, to a time when the land itself carried its own dark history. Long before the bank was established, the site was home to the St. Albans Asylum, a facility infamous for its inhumane practices. Built in the late 1800s, it was intended as a place of refuge for the mentally ill. But as overcrowding and neglect took hold, it became something else entirely: a prison for society's unwanted. Patients were confined to tiny, windowless cells for days on end. Many were shackled, left to starve, or subjected to experimental treatments that bordered on torture. When the asylum finally shut down in 1905, it was said that the cries of the forgotten could still be heard echoing through the empty halls. But what happened to those halls, to those cries? When Henry Caldwell purchased the land for the bank, he was well aware of its history. Some even say he chose the site deliberately. Caldwell was known for his eccentricities, but behind closed doors, his interests were far darker. Rumors swirled that he dabbled in the occult, believing he could harness the energy of the dead to amass power and wealth. It was whispered that the vault wasn't just designed to protect. It was designed to contain, a monument to Caldwell's obsession, built over the restless spirits of the asylum's victims. Records show that Caldwell employed a team of workers to excavate the asylum's basement during the vault's construction. Those workers, 7 in total, all disappeared within weeks of the project's completion. Official reports chalked it up to turnover, but locals tell a different story. They believe Caldwell buried more than just bricks and mortar beneath the vault. They believe he buried their souls. The truth remains buried with Caldwell, who died suddenly in 1913, just 3 years after the vault was completed. No cause of death was ever determined. Over the years, the vault's reputation grew, not just for its security, but for the chilling stories that surrounded it. Urban legends claimed that the vault trapped more than just valuables. It trapped the souls of the dead. And for those who dared to interact with it, the consequences were often fatal. Take the case of Margaret Hensley, a bank clerk who worked near the vault in the 1940s. Margaret was known for her cheerful demeanor, but her co-workers noticed a change after she was assigned to monitor the vault's inventory. She became withdrawn, complaining of sleepless nights and strange dreams. Weeks later, she was found dead in her apartment, clutching a piece of paper scrawled with the words, "It won't let me go." The police ruled it a suicide, but those who knew her believed otherwise. These stories, and many more like them, paint a picture of a vault that is far more than a repository for wealth. They suggest a place that guards its secrets fiercely, a place that punishes those who dare to get too close, So what lies behind that door? Is it the restless spirits of the asylum's victims, forever trapped by Caldwell's greed? Or is it something even darker, something that defies explanation? We may never know the truth. But one thing is certain: the vault is not just a relic of the past. It is a reminder that some mysteries are better left unsolved. Would you open the door? Would you risk it, knowing what others have seen, heard, and felt? The vault stands, silent and waiting, as it always has, and perhaps as it always will. If this tale has sent chills down your spine, don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you think truly lies behind that door. And remember, this is just one of many stories that will haunt your dreams. Join us next time for another chilling tale.